Tiryan Manusya Vibudadishu Jiva Yonish. Oh, I see. I was wondering what was happening there. I'll say it again. Tiryan Manusya Vibudadishu Jiva Yonish. Tiryan Manusya Vibudadishu Jiva Yonish. Vatme Chayatma Krita Setu Paripshayaya. Vatme Chayatma Kritu Setu Paripshayaya. Re me nirasta vishayopya Re me nirasta vishayopya varudha dehas. Re me nirasta vishayopya avarudha dehas. Tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. Tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. Tiryan manushya vibhudadishu jiva yonish. Vatmechayatma krita setu paripshayaya. Re me nirasta vishayopya varudha dehas. Tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. Tiryan manushya vibhudadishu jiva yonish. Vatmechayatma krita setu paripshayaya. Re me nirasta vishayopya varudha dehas. Tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. Tiryan manushya vibhudadishu jiva yonish. Vatme chayatma kseta hetu paripshayaya. Re me nirasta vishayopya varudha dehas. Tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. Tiryan manushya vibhudadishu jiva yonish. Vatmechayatma krita setu paripshayaya. Re me nirasta vishayopya varudha dehas. Tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. Tiryan manushya vibhudadishu jiva yonish. Vatmechayatma krita setu paripshayaya. Re me nirasta vishayopya varudha dehas. Tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. Ladies. Tiryan manusya vibudadishu jiva yonish. Vat mechayatma kritasetu paripshayaya. Reme nirasta vishayopya varuddha dehas. Tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. Tiryak. Animals lower than human beings. Manushya. Human beings, etc. Vibhuda adishu. Amongst the demigods. Jiva yonishu. In different species of life. Atma. Self. Ichchaya. By the will. Atma krita. Self-created. Setu. Obligations. Paripshaya. Desiring to preserve. Yaha. Who. Reme. Performing transcendental pastimes. Nirasta. Not being affected. Vishayaha. Material contamination. Api. Certainly. Avaruddha. Manifested. Deha. Transcendental body. Tasmai. Unto him. Namaha. My obeisances. Bhagavate. Unto the personality of Godhead. Purushottamaya. The primeval Lord. So the translation reads, O my Lord, by your own will you appear in various species of living entities, among animals lower than human beings, as well as among the demigods, to perform your transcendental pastime. You are not affected by material contamination. You come just to fulfill the obligations of your own principles of religion, and therefore, O Supreme Personality, I offer my obeisances unto you for manifesting such different forms. So responsively, O my Lord, by your own will, you appear in various species of living entities, among animals lower than human beings, as well as among the demigods, to perform your transcendental pastimes. You are not affected by material contamination. You come just to fulfill the obligations of your own principles of religion, and therefore, O Supreme Personality, I offer my obeisances unto you for manifesting such different forms. Okay, so here's the purport. The Lord's incarnations in different species of life are all transcendental. He appears as a human being in his incarnation of Krishna, Rama, etc. But he is not a human being. Anyone who mistakes him for an ordinary human being is certainly not very intelligent, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Avajananti mam mudha manusam tanam ashritam. The same principle is applicable when he appears as the hog or fish incarnations. They are transcendental forms of the Lord and are manifested under certain necessities of his own pleasure and pastimes. Such manifestations of the transcendental forms of the Lord are accepted by him mostly to enliven his devotees. All his incarnations are manifested whenever there is need to deliver his devotees and maintain his own principles. Tiryan manusya vibudadishu jiva yonish vatmechayatma kritasetu paripshayaya reme nirasta vishayopyavaruddha dehas tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. O my Lord, by your own will you appear in various species of living entities, among animals lower than human beings, as well as among the demigods, to perform your transcendental pastimes. You are not affected by material contamination. You come just to fulfill obligations of your own principles of religion, and therefore, O Supreme Personality, I offer my obeisances unto you for manifesting such different forms. So, this is the end of this little section in the 9th chapter of 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Earlier in this chapter of Bhagavatam, from verses 1 through 5, we heard about the Lord's lotus feet, how amazing the Lord's lotus feet are, what they mean to devotees. And we're going to hear about that more today. And then from 6 to 10, we heard about those people who can't get the mercy of the Lord's lotus feet for one reason or another. Then from 11 through 13, we have the Supreme Lord's reciprocation with his devotees. And this section, 14 through 19, we have Brahma offering obeisances. And so he's also describing the Lord. Yesterday he described the Lord, and today he's describing the Lord and talking about his pastimes and why he appears. And we are going to go more into depth about that today also. Then from 20 to 26, Brahma will, this is what's going to start with tomorrow's verse, from 20 to 26. We're going to hear about Brahma's prayers to create the universe. So Brahma has to perform the function of creating this amazing material universe that we live in. And he's a little mystified, so he's asking Krishna to give him the mercy to be able to do it, the knowledge to be able to do it. And then the last segment is from 27 to 49, the largest segment of this particular chapter, chapter 9, where we're going to see how the Supreme Lord responds to Brahma. So it's interesting, actually, how these verses all tie in with what's actually going on today, which is, of course, Gaura Purnima, the appearance of Lord Caitanya. We find out, of course, that Lord Caitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahayanya, that Lord Caitanya is Radha and Krishna in one form. And Lord Caitanya is actually not an incarnation. He is directly Krishna. So he is directly Krishna. But then why would Krishna come as Krishna and then as Lord Caitanya? What's the difference? Well, the most, I would say, important difference between Lord Caitanya and Krishna is we hear it said that Lord Caitanya is more merciful than Krishna. So Krishna came and he spoke to Arjuna, Sarvadharma parityajya mamekam sharanam vrajam aham tvam sarva papebhya mokshishami ma ashuchaha. So he demanded that someone surrender. But Lord Caitanya doesn't do that. Lord Caitanya just asks people to chant. And sometimes he doesn't even ask people to chant, he just catches them up in his Sankirtan movement, which we see this nice picture of artwork above the Vyasasana of Srila Prabhupada. So Lord Caitanya came some 500 plus years ago, and when he came, he started a flood of love of God. And we find that Lord Caitanya is considered Yuga Avatar. So what does Yuga Avatar do? Yuga Avatar is the avatar who brings the Dharma for the age. Now, Krishna highlighted the Dharma for the age in which Krishna had come toward the end of it in Dwapara Yuga. So in Dwapara Yuga, the Yuga Dharma was the performance of worship for deities. So that's actually the Yuga Dharma for the age of Dwapara. But in Kali Yuga, the Dharma for the age is Sankirtan Yagya. So we hear Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sangopangas Parshadam Yagya Sankirtanaya Prayarya Jantihi Sumedashaha, which is in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sangopanga. So Krishna Varnam Twishang Krishna Varnam Twisha Krishnam Sangopangastra Parshadam Yagya Sankirtanaya Prayarya Jantihi Sumedashaha. That in the age of Kali Yuga, the Supreme Lord, who is not blackish yet is the Supreme Lord, will come to deliver the population through the process of chanting. And he will descend with his weapons, servants, and confidential companions. So the Supreme Lord, Lord Caitanya, will descend in the age of Kali Yuga with his various associates. So in Bhagavad Gita, we learn that Paratranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That to deliver the pious, annihilate the miscreants, the Supreme Lord comes. So the Supreme Lord is coming, and we learn these kind of reasons, that he comes to reestablish religion, he comes to annihilate the demoniac, and we learn that the Supreme Lord comes to give pleasure to the devotees. And we learn in Srimad Caitanya Caritamrta, in the Adi Lila, we learn that there are two basic categories of reason why the Lord comes. And those are his internal reasons for coming and the external reasons for coming. The internal reasons for coming are the Lord comes for his own pastimes, to enjoy his own special flavor. So he's coming for his own reason there. External reason is that the Lord comes to deliver the people of Kali Yuga. The understanding of Lord Caitanya, because Lord Caitanya is Channa Avatar, he's hidden. He's not well understood. And in fact, mostly outside of the Vaishnava tradition, people do not even consider Lord Caitanya as the Supreme Lord. In the Vaishnava tradition, particularly in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, we know that Lord Caitanya is not just a saint or a person who spread the Sankirtan movement. He's directly Krishna. he's much more than what most people realize. So he's hidden. And Lord Caitanya did not make a show of his being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, in Chaitanya Leela, we find there several times where somebody called out to Lord Caitanya as being the Supreme Lord, and Lord Caitanya blocked up his ears and made a grimace and revolted against the idea, even though actually he was the Supreme. Yet he appeared to reject the idea that he was the Supreme. And why would that be? And the reason is, of course, that he was playing the role of a devotee. So it's like if you were on a stage and you're acting as the role of a particular protagonist or something like that, and somebody calls out your actual name. It breaks the mood. And so Lord Caitanya wanted to stay in character. He wanted to stay and be recognized as a devotee of the Lord. And so why was the Lord Caitanya, so keen on seeming like a devotee as opposed to seeming like the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Of course, in Caitanya Caritamrta, there are obviously times where Lord Caitanya does things that only Lord Caitanya could do, only the Supreme Lord. He takes a mango and seed and puts it into the ground. Immediately a tree grows up, People can't do that kind of thing. Only the Supreme Lord could do that. And, he gets out of a room, the Gambhira, where he's locked without breaking the door down. He just appears outside of it. There are many other things like that. His ecstasies in the later part of Lord Chaitanya's life, his arms and legs get very, very wide. They were already very big. Lord Caitanya was quite tall. If you go to Bengal, you notice that most people are kind of not that tall. But Lord Caitanya was much taller than most, and his arms were so long that they came down to his knees practically when he stood up, or a little below that. And his hue was golden. Of course, he appeared in 1486, and he lived on this earth for approximately 48 years, and 24 of those years were before he took sannyas, and 24 of them were after he took sannyas. And after he took sannyas, he spent a couple of years traveling in South India and then settled in Jagannath Puri. And that's where he had his more esoteric and more extreme pastimes in Jagannath Puri. But he came to deliver this message of chanting the holy name, without which the poor people of Kali Yuga would be hopeless. There would be no way that we could ever get out of this age of Kali Yuga. So Lord Caitanya, as the Yuga Avatar, came to deliver that. And I thought that we talked a little bit about, the Caitanya Caritamrta. Originally, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who was it that wrote the Caitanya Bhagavat? I'm trying to remember now. Was that? Vrindavanath Thakur, right, that's what I'm saying. Not Vishwanath, but Vrindavanath Thakur wrote the Caitanya Bhagavat. And it depicts very lusciously the pastimes of Lord Caitanya, particularly his younger pastimes. And then we have the Caitanya Mangala. Now, originally, the Caitanya Bhagavat was called the Caitanya Mangala. And later, Lochandas wrote the Caitanya, also the Caitanya Mangala. And it was decided that the first Caitanya Mangala would be changed to the Caitanya Bhagavat. And so the Caitanya Bhagavat by Vrindavan Das was about his early pastimes mostly. And it has a lot of pastimes of Lord Caitanya, but it doesn't explain much about the teachings of Lord Caitanya. Then we have the Caitanya Mangala, which is actually what I'm going to speak about today. It explains kind of, in a very charming way, it's probably the shortest of all those works, you know. It explains in a very charming way why Lord Caitanya comes to this world. And of course we have the Caitanya Caritamrta by Krishnadas Kaviraj. And the Caitanya Caritamrta does what neither of those two books did. It describes Lord Caitanya's later pastimes, and it explains what Lord Caitanya's philosophy was. What was it that Lord Caitanya came to teach? So this is what Caitanya Caritamrta is about. Vrindavan Das Thakur did not want to have too much in his book. It was already big. So Krishnadas Kaviraj then briefly goes over Lord Caitanya's early life. And then he explains the philosophy that Lord Caitanya taught. And especially there's a lot of focus on Lord Caitanya's years in Jagannath Puri, his mysterious pastimes in Jagannath Puri. So, in general, in our world, people do not know much about God. They don't think about God. Or when they do, they think about the Supreme Lord usually in a very shallow way. They don't have much information. And what can the Supreme Lord be doing? You know, is he up there like, some kind of YouTube personality, getting cards and letters and emails from people all over the universe, and they're saying, you know, I need this, I need that, you know. Jimmy wants a pair of skates, Julie wants a sled, you know, these kind of things. What's he doing? Is that really what God's about? All he's doing is hearing various petitions for various material benedictions. You can imagine that if that was what God did in the spiritual world, that would be a pretty funky, position for the Supreme Lord. And the answer, of course, well, he may do that. In fact, he does fulfill the desires, even to some extent the material desires of others. But he's enjoying on his own. And we know that in the spiritual world, Krishna enjoys, and there's levels in the spiritual world, which we're going to hear about today, different levels in the spiritual world. So Krishna enjoys on his own. He has his other expansions do the work. Like Vishnu expands the universe and other expansions do other things. So that's what Krishna has other expansions do. He doesn't do that. He is just enjoying. He's with the cowherd girls. They're playing. They're hiding. He's sometimes with the cowherd boys. He's sometimes with his mother. And he goes back and forth. And he's sneaking around and doing all these kind of things. That's Krishna. So, the Caitanya Mangala, it starts off with Narada Muni. So the Caitanya Mangala is really kind of following Narada Muni. So Narada Muni is as we know, a transcendental spaceman. He's not limited to where he can go. He can travel freely from one planet to another in our material universe. He can travel outside the material universe if he wants to. He's not restricted, and that's the nature of those who are very pure. They are not restricted by this material world. So Narada Muni, he travels to the earth, and he notices that Kali Yuga is starting to dawn, that the age of Kali Yuga is coming in. People are getting nasty. That in Kali Yuga, all the four pillars of religion are down to one. So we have, instead of truthfulness, mercy, cleanliness, and what is it? Austerity, right? Truthfulness, austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. We have only truthfulness left, and that one is very shaky. Actually, it's hard to even imagine Kali Yuga that there's much of truthfulness left, especially when you watch political campaigns. And it seems hard to believe that there's any truthfulness left, you know. But that's the nature of Kali Yuga. Just as karma and the free will that the Supreme Lord gives the living entities has to be available throughout the material world, and therefore many people will choose the wrong thing. People will believe things that are not correct. People will do things that are not appropriate. People will want things that cause them harm. So the material world has to provide for that. And because people make the wrong choices, sometimes they will lose the material human form of life, and they will descend into animal species, as we are hearing today. The Supreme Lord even will make his incarnation among lower species in the animal kingdom, what to speak of in the heavenly demigod kingdom, and he will make his appearance in the human form. So when human beings misuse their independence and they are reduced to the animal species, the Supreme Lord will sometimes go there and attract them even as animals. So this is the nature of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord travels with every living being, no matter where he goes, as supersoul in the heart or as antaryami. So the Supreme is seated in everyone's heart. So Narada Muni notices this age of Kali Yuga and its darkness, and he thinks, this is no good. We have to deliver these people in the age of Kali Yuga. How will it be done? And he thinks, if I am really the devotee of the Supreme Lord, I will deliver these people. So he makes a pledge, he focuses himself, and he attempts to deliver the people of Kali Yuga. But it doesn't work. So if you have a bad day on Sankirtan, you can see that even Narada Muni has his bad days. So what to speak of us? So Narada Muni makes an attempt to deliver the people of Kali Yuga, and he's unable to get anything done. So he's kind of disturbed by that, and he thinks, I'm going to have to get some help or some mercy or something. So he decides that he's going to Dwarka to visit Krishna. So Narada Muni leaves the earth, and he's traveling to Dwarka, where Krishna has 16,108 queens, each with a palace, all for herself. And Krishna expands in 16,108 forms in each palace. And at this moment, Narada Muni is arriving, but before he appears, what's going on is that Krishna has just come to Rukmini. And Rukmini and Nagnajiti and some of her servants, they are hearing that Krishna is just about to arrive. So they're preparing everything. And they're cleaning things. Even in the spiritual world, although there's almost no dust, still people clean things. So they hear Krishna's arriving. And when Krishna arrives, Rukmini washes Krishna's feet. So we were hearing about Krishna's lotus feet. So here, Rukmini and Nagnajiti and some of the others that are together there in this particular palace at this particular time, they're washing Krishna's feet. And after washing Krishna's feet, they dry his feet, and Rukmini holds Krishna's feet to her chest. And as she's holding Krishna's feet to her chest, tears are starting to come out of her eyes. She's becoming very emotional. And Krishna's beginning to notice this, that Rukmini seems beside herself. So Krishna, he says, "My dear Rukmini, have I said something wrong? Have I not fulfilled some promise that I gave you? Did I do something you didn't like? Maybe you're remembering that time when I joked with you and I told you to choose another husband." And, Krishna's guessing. I mean, it's interesting that here is the Supreme Lord, the knower of everything, and he's guessing at what's going on in Rukmini's mind. And evidently it appears he guessed wrong, because Rukmini wasn't at all thinking about that time when, Krishna suggested that she take another husband. But remembering that immediately upsets her in a different way. And then she says, oh no. And she begins to speak or reply to Krishna, and it mentions with tears mixed with anger now. So she's disturbed that Krishna has reminded her of that episode. And she says, "You have no idea. You have no idea. You are the Supreme Lord, and you do not know what your lotus feet mean to the devotees. You can't know. You are the Supreme, and the devotees are just your tiny parts, but they know what your lotus feet actually mean. In fact, your lotus feet are more dear to them than even you yourself. And most do not know anything about your lotus feet. Only myself and Radharani know something about your lotus feet." Krishna looks puzzled, and he says, no one has ever told me I didn't know something before. And please say that again. And so Rukmini kind of elaborates a little bit more about how, as we're hearing, in this chapter, in chapter 9 of the third canto, what the lotus feet mean to the devotees, how precious they are, and how by getting Krishna's lotus feet we can be delivered from the material world, and that the lotus feet are considered the treasure of the devotees. So Rukmini says that your lotus feet are the only real treasure of your devotees. And you cannot know what the devotees experience when they come in contact with your lotus feet. That was why I'm crying. And Krishna says, you have said something very amazing, and therefore I must take birth to see what my lotus feet are like. I've never heard this before, and I need to take birth. So here we're learning about the internal reason why Lord Caitanya comes. So he's coming to experience. It's also sometimes said that Lord Caitanya is coming because he wants to experience Radha's love or her mood. But also in Caitanya Mangala we find that he's coming to understand what it is that his parts and parcels, the living entities, experience when they come in contact with his own lotus feet. So at that precise moment, Narada Muni arrives. And so immediately, everybody jumps around and the scene breaks. And they welcome Narada Muni, and Krishna is washing Narada Muni's feet, and then they're talking to Narada Muni. And Krishna notices that Narada Muni is also upset. And so Krishna is saying, my dear Narada Muni, what seems to be the problem for you? And Narada Muni said, I've just come from the earth, and there Kali Yuga is taking over, and everybody is very sinful, and I tried, but I cannot understand how can these people in Kali Yuga be ever delivered? So Krishna says, well, my dear Narada Muni, you should know that I am going to descend to the earth very soon in a special form, a form that maybe you have never heard of. And that form is a golden form named Gauranga. I'm going to descend to the earth as Gauranga. So then Krishna transforms himself into this form of Lord Caitanya. And Narada Muni is dazzled. Narada Muni is blown away by this amazing form of Lord Caitanya. He's beside himself, and he begins to, go into various ecstasies. And when he comes back from his amazing ecstasies, at that point, then Krishna says, but I need you to go to the earth again and to get things ready. I need various associates. I need the demigods. I need my brother. I need so many people to be notified. And by the way, notify Shiva. So Narada Muni then has this duty to perform. Now he has to get things ready. It's like he's been given the MC role, or the role of the person who is going to pull together this pastime that Krishna is going to do as he comes in this not very well known, very mysterious, very unusual form as Lord Caitanya, with a very odd purpose and with mercy very abundant. So, the first thing that Narada does is he visits Naimisharanya. And when he visits Naimisharanya, he comes in contact with Uddhava. And he tells Uddhava that soon Krishna will be coming in a very amazing form, a form known as Gauranga, and he will do many amazing pastimes. And also he will give the mercy that will be able to lift people out of the age of Kali Yuga. So that's what he's coming to do as Lord Caitanya. So Uddhava is very taken by this, and he thinks, oh, this is very good news, because I myself was really worried about how in Kali Yuga the people of Kali Yuga would ever be delivered, and you have given me very, very good news. So Uddhava is very happy about this, and Narada Muni then leaves, and he's going to Mount Kailas, where Lord Shiva and Parvati are. But Narada Muni is kind of wobbly because he is so caught up in the ecstasy of having heard about Lord Caitanya and being given this information that even in the age of Kali Yuga, even in the worst possible age, that people can still be delivered. Somehow or other they can still be delivered. So, all right, so now he's hearing this, and he's going to Lord Shiva, and he's remembering that there was an episode that happened with Lord Shiva and Parvati. And as he's thinking about this, he is arriving. And when he arrives, Nandi, the bull of Lord Shiva, greets him. And he says, my dear Narada Muni, you seem in some rare form. You're very ecstatic. Please come and meet Lord Shiva. And so he comes, and Lord Shiva and Parvati are together. And Narada Muni says, my dear brother, because actually Narada Muni is the brother of Lord Shiva. And he's the elder brother of Lord Shiva. And Narada Muni says, my dear brother, don't you remember there was a special time when we heard about this special mercy that would happen, and that the Supreme Lord would come and give mercy to everybody? You surely must remember this. And then it's like a flashback. He begins to talk about how at an earlier time he had discussed with Uddhava about how people could be delivered in Kali Yuga. And when he heard about that, Uddhava had suggested that he had, as Uddhava, experienced Mahaprasad. And Mahaprasad is very special. So the Lord's lotus feet and Mahaprasad, all these are special things because they come directly from Krishna, and they have the power to liberate people, to bring people to another state. So when Uddhava had mentioned this, Narada Muni thought, all right, then I have to experience what this Mahaprasad is like. So Narada Muni had gone to Vaikuntha, and there he saw Lakshmi Devi. And in Vaikuntha, Narada Muni served Lakshmi Devi for 12 years. And, he tried to please her in every way in her service to her Lord, who is, of course, Vishnu. And after some time, after 12 years had gone by, Lakshmi said, my dear Narada Muni, I really appreciate you've helped me so much. Is there some benediction, some boon I can give you to repay your helping me? And Narada Muni said, actually, yes. There is something that I would like to ask you. And he said, my dear Lakshmi, can you get some of Vishnu's Mahaprasad for me? And Lakshmi, her face kind of went gray a little bit. She said, oh, you had to ask that. Vishnu told me that I can never give his Mahaprasad to anybody. But you have asked me, and I pledged that I would do it, so somehow I will try to get you some Mahaprasad from Vishnu. So one day, Lakshmi serving Vishnu, and Vishnu says, my dear Lakshmi, you are so dear to me, you are helping me in so many ways. Is there something I can do for you? And she says, actually, yes, there is. I would like to give some Mahaprasad to Narada Muni. What do you think, my dear husband? And Vishnu says, Lakshmi, you have made a big mistake. And he said, however, since you are asking me, I will let you give some Mahaprasad to Narada Muni, but you have to do it when I'm not looking. So he gives her permission, and on the sly, Lakshmi gets some Mahaprasad. And she says, here you go, Narada Muni, you can have some Mahaprasad. So Narada Muni gets the Mahaprasad, and he eats a little bit of it, then he eats a little bit more, and then he begins to dance, and he begins to jump around, he begins to lose consciousness, he doesn't know where he is, and he's going all over the place. He's kind of delirious, basically. And, we take Mahaprasad and we think of it as kind of, all right, I'll take some Mahaprasad. But it just, at least for me, I can only speak for myself. It goes to show how far we are from who we are, how through a glass darkly this whole system is, that here is the Supreme Lord, here is his Mahaprasad, I barely perceive anything, it's like I might as well be a million miles away, But here Narada Muni is basically almost, his body is breaking apart from the ecstasy. He's walking and he hikes up his dhoti and he says, Gaura, 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 and he's, kind of delirious. And he happens to run onto Shiva. And Shiva notices that his brother, his older brother, is in this state. And he says, my dear Narada Muni. Of course, just remember that Narada Muni has visited Shiva. And he's reminding them of this episode that happened earlier. So this episode where Narada Muni got the Mahaprasad from Lakshmi, that happened before. And he's reminding Shiva and Parvati of this earlier episode. So now Shiva is saying, what is the source? What is the reason for your ecstatic symptoms that you're experiencing right now? And Narada Muni says, you cannot imagine, I've got some of Mahavishnu's prasad, and it has driven me to ecstasies I've never experienced before. There's nothing like it. And Shiva says, really? Well, then I'm sure you must have saved me a piece, right? We're brothers, right? And Narada Muni said, actually, no. Oh, wait. I think there might be a little piece left in the pot. So he looks, and there's a crumb left of the Mahaprasadam from Vishnu in the pot. And he says, look, my younger brother here, Shiva, you can have some of this Mahaprasad. And Shiva immediately takes the prasad. And Shiva goes into even more of an ecstasy. But when Shiva goes into ecstasy, it's dangerous. Because when Shiva dances, it's not cool. Part of the devastation of the whole universe. So Shiva's dancing and he's getting wilder and wilder. And it's explained in the Caitanya Mangala that he's pushing down on the earth so hard that Ananta Sesh, who's holding up the planets, is bending over backwards, and he's pushing the earth down to where the waters of devastation are, the Garbha ocean. He's being pushed down so far, and everybody's starting to get terrified. And the demigods say, we've got to stop this somehow or other. They all come to Parvati, Shiva's wife, and they say, dear Devi, do something. Your husband's about to destroy the universe. It's not time for the universe to be destroyed right now. Please do something. So Parvati goes to her husband, Lord Shiva, and she says some harsh words. and breaks Lord Shiva out of his wild ecstasy. And Shiva kind of comes to, and he looks at Parvati, and he said, "My dear wife, I was in such ecstasy. Why did you speak so harshly and pull me out of this ecstasy? You are acting like my enemy." And Parvati said, "My dear husband, I had to do something. You were about to annihilate the whole material earth universe that we were in if I hadn't done something." And Shiva says, "Oh, I didn't realize that." And she says, "By the way, my dear husband, why are you in such a wild ecstasy today? What could be the source of this wild ecstasy?" And Shiva replies, "Oh, you have no idea. I just got some of Mahavishnu's Mahaprasad. You don't have any idea what that's like." And she said, "Well, I'm sure you must have saved me some." And at that point, Lord Shiva said, "Well, actually, no." And so his wife Parvati said, "Well, I'm not surprised. You claim that we are one body, that we are husband and wife, and we are very dear. But I see it's all just a show, that you don't really care about me, and that you didn't even think to set aside any Mahaprasad for me. So what am I supposed to think now?" And sometimes in a kind of hot, difficult situation, there's this thing where you open your mouth and you insert your foot. So Shiva says the worst possible thing. And he says, "But my dear Devi, you are a woman, so you are not actually qualified for this." I couldn't think of anything worse he could have said, But this is what Shiva says. And at this point, Parvati becomes livid. She's totally incensed by the statement from her husband. And she says, "My dear husband, if I ever, somehow or other, ever I come across Mahaprasad, I will give this Mahaprasad to every living being in the universe. I don't care whether they're high or low, whether they're exalted, whether they're male or female, or even if they're jackals or some low, ugly, unseemly animal. I will give it to everyone." And just as she says this, there's a big sound, and Vishnu appears. And he says, "Yes, this is the vow. This is what everyone should think, that I need to give this Mahaprasad to everyone. I approve Parvati's vow." So this is how the episode came, and this is the idea of Lord Caitanya, of spreading this mercy to everyone, high and low, everywhere, without considering who is qualified or who's not qualified. So now, with that over with, Narada Muni reminds Lord Shiva about this, and then he leaves, and he goes to Brahmaloka, because now he has to inform the demigods. So he's informed, Lord Shiva, he's informed Uddhava, he's done some preliminary stuff. Now he's going to inform the demigods, so he's going to talk to his father, Lord Brahma. So Narada Muni comes, and Lord Brahma sees that Narada Muni is very, agitated and very, intense. So he thinks, "Oh, why is my son so elated today?" And then Narada Muni tells him about this avatar this Gauranga, this golden avatar that's going to appear soon. And when he tells him this, Lord Brahma says, "Oh, that's very wonderful. I had actually wondered what would happen in Kali Yuga, how people would be delivered. And someone asked me the question, actually, the four Kumaras. They came to me and they asked me, why in Kali Yuga does Krishna appear, and he appears to have lusty relationships with girls, in the forest? This bothers us and we are perplexed by this. Please explain this, since you are Lord Brahma and you know these things." And so Brahma said, "Well, I don't have a good answer for you. Let me think about it." So Lord Brahma thought about the answer to this question of why the Supreme Lord comes, and he has pastimes in Kali Yuga like this. And after thinking about it for some time, he was benedicted with the Hansa Avatar, which is like a big swan. And the Hansa Avatar came and spoke to Lord Brahma, explained the reason why the Supreme Lord comes in Kali Yuga. And of course, we know that although the relationship Krishna has with the gopis appears like some kind of questionable thing, and it seems very much like the kind of relationships that people in Kali Yuga have, these irreligious and very lusty types of relationships. It's actually nothing of the sort, because the Supreme Lord Krishna is not attracted to the gopis because of their bodies or because of some kind of low-grade lust, but he's only attracted to them because of their devotion. That's what he's actually relishing. Although those who are not spiritually advanced and who have not actually made any effort to understand the deeper Vedic texts would never know this, and they would be prone to confuse these two things. And as Prabhupada said, it's like iron and gold. Both are metals, but they're not the same kind of metal. And that the pastimes of Lord Krishna are the highest kind of love, whereas when we have relationships of this type in the material world, where only lust is being really served, then this is a very different thing. So Lord Brahma thanks his son Narada Muni for having, explained this new avatar that's going to appear soon, this Lord Caitanya, who will come and who will bring love of God in the mood of Parvati wanting to give love of God to every living being. This is the mood that Lord Caitanya will have. And Narada Muni moves on. So where does he go next? He goes to Vaikuntha. So now he's going to the spiritual world. And actually, no, he returns to earth. I'm sorry. The place he goes next is he goes back to the earth. And there he sees that things have not progressed very much yet, but he sees something unusual. He sees that the Lord has come in a wooden form, and that form is Jagannath. And so he goes to Puri, and he sees Jagannath. And Jagannath said, "Yes, I have come as Krishna, and I will also come as Lord Caitanya. And in this mood, as Jagannath and as Caitanya, we will not make demands to give people love of God. We will just distribute it freely." And so we learn here how Lord Jagannath figures into it. Of course, we know that Lord Caitanya will have many pastimes in Puri, and that his pastimes will regularly, yearly, attend the Jagannath festival, where there will be this dancing and this play between Krishna, who is in Jagannath's form, and Lord Caitanya, who will be exemplifying the mood of Radharani. And so this is kind of a complex overlay. So the Supreme Lord has these pastimes where many different things are happening at once. So after speaking with Lord Jagannath, then Narada Muni goes to Vaikuntha. And there he sees the place in Vaikuntha where Lord Chaitanya is actually presently engaged in his pastime. So in the spiritual world, in the highest level, Goloka Vrindavan, there is a place where Krishna carries out his pastimes. There's a place where Lord Ramachandra carries out his pastimes. And there's also a place where Lord Chaitanya carries out his pastimes eternally in the spiritual world. This is in the spiritual world. So Narada Muni goes there, and there he sees thousands of various Lakshmis and other servants serving Lord Chaitanya. And they are in the midst of bringing water and ghee and milk and cream in jeweled water pots, and they're serving Lord Chaitanya, and they're pouring it over Lord Chaitanya, and he's enjoying it. And Narada Muni said, I have come, my dear Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya sets him, Narada Muni, on his lap, and he says, what can I do for you, my dear Narada Muni? And he says, I have been sent that it's time for you to come to the earth plane now. It's Kali Yuga, and you will be there. You will come to deliver those people in the earth plane. And Lord Chaitanya says, yes, now is time for me to come to the earth, and I will have my pastimes. But you must do one thing for me, Narada Muni. You must go to get my brother. And so then Narada Muni goes to where Balaram is. And when he arrives there, he sees that Balaram is with, his gopis. And Narada Muni says, my dear Balaram, don't you know that your brother Chaitanya is about to go and descend to the earth plane, and you also need to come to assist him in his pastimes? And Balaram laughs a big laugh and says, yes, I will go. So this is kind of where the Caitanya Mangala ends. So we see how this all interplays, and in a very interesting way, we see how Lord Chaitanya comes from a multiplicity of purposes, and how the mood of Lord Chaitanya is this mood of giving freely love of God. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote the whole thing about the broker. Bhaktivinoda Thakur described something that's like an MLM, multi-level marketing, system where Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda are brokers. They're distributing love of Godhead, and the only price is a little tear forming in the eye. And they came to give love of God to everyone in the earth plane, but they had no people buying, so they lowered the price, like you have a bargain basement sellout or something like that, because they didn't want to carry love of Godhead back to the spiritual world. They wanted to get some sales, so they did a sales reduction. So this is the nature of Lord Chaitanya, the very special avatar. And with that, I will end, but if there are any questions or comments, then we'll take some. Let me drink a little bit of water. My throat is doing something. Yes.
Well, I just want to thank you, Maharaj. Really, at least I felt really absorbed. You were telling pastime very in a way that really grabbed the attention, and I appreciate that you shared all that. I had an experience yesterday which It ties into Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. And I went up to Hartford to pick up the flowers for the deities. There's Muktavanya, he donates thousands of dollars worth of flowers. So all we have to do is drive and get them. So I went there to pick up the flowers. It was a 2.5 hour drive to get there. Then after that drive, I decided, okay, maybe I should walk around a little bit before I drive back into the city. So I went to some park, and then I got out and I was doing a japa walk, but I took a book with me, Science of Self-Realization. I put it in my pocket. My Guru Maharaj says that just by carrying a book with you, Lord Caitanya will make some arrangements for that book to go out. So I'm walking around the park, and there's a lot of people, and I actually started feeling like I felt like out of place because I'm walking around my Dori and Kurta, and it's just the whole park is full of people. And then I was kind of, so at the moment when I started feeling like that, I was thinking, anyway, I'm just here and I'm just chanting japa, and I'm just gonna go back to the car. So as I'm walking back to the car, these 3 gentlemen stopped me, and he started saying Assalamu alaikum. So he thought I was Muslim, but he started saying Assalamu alaikum. So I looked at him and I said, Hare Krishna. And he said, oh, you're Hare Krishna? I said, yeah, I'm a Hare Krishna. And it was three Caucasian gentlemen, maybe like in their 50s. And then so I just took the opportunity, and I pulled the book out and I put it in his hand. And then he looked in the back. He said, oh, Srila Prabhupada. I was like,
they knew who Srila Prabhupada.
He goes, I read a book about Srila Prabhupada 30 years ago. Yeah, this man. He starts telling his friends. He says, Srila Prabhupada, he's a great guy. So then,
he had met Prabhupada personally?
No. He just read him.
Yeah,
read a book. I guess 30 years ago or something. And then he said, yeah, Srila Prabhupada. Oh, he's great. Yeah, Hare Krishna. And so he starts saying Hare Krishna is great. So now I tell him, like, it's Gaura Purnima, today. And he says, okay, we'll go to the temple, And then his friends, like, they allow Caucasians to come in? So and I said, yes, yeah, everyone is welcome. So
everyone, even Caucasians.
Yeah. So, so it was nice. And then they all gave a donation. There was three of them for the book. So it was nice.
Yeah, I wonder if they know about Peoria and his place up there. He's got a place in Glastonbury.
Yeah. I was just a block away from the temple, actually.
Oh, really?
In the Riverbank Park.
Yes, Mukunda Ashraya has something.
My question is, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a very wonderful, detailed class. My question is about the rarity of Lord Chaitanya, the rarity of Lord Chaitanya in this particular yuga compared to other yugas.
Right. Well, Lord Caitanya, as I said in the beginning, he's Channa Avatar. He's hidden. Most of the time, there's that whole episode that happens between Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Govinda, I think it is. Gopinath, right? Gopinath and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, where they have a debate, where this is before Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is converted. He's comes through the Mayavadi tradition. And so at that time, at the time of Lord Caitanya, anyone who was, a Brahmana or initiated was probably initiated in the Sankaracharya system, So the Bhattacharya was certainly, an impersonal teacher of logic, And so when Lord Caitanya broke ahead of the whole party going to Jagannath Puri, he arrived at Jagannath Temple before all the other devotees did, and he saw Lord Jagannath, and he went unconscious. And the pundits there and the people who were serving the deity were going to just throw him out, But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was there, and he thought maybe he's not just feigning, or maybe he's not got some medical issue, maybe he's in ecstasy. So he put some cotton swab next to Chaitanya's nostrils, and he could see the hairs moving slightly on the cotton swab. So then he asked that they bring Lord Caitanya to his own home. And when they got there, later on the devotees arrived and they were wondering what happened to Caitanya, and they heard that Lord Caitanya had been there and he had fainted and that they had taken him away somewhere. So they went to Sarvabhauma's house. And that's where Gopinath had a debate with Sarvabhauma, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, well, this young boy, he's taken sannyas too young, he's very handsome, and how will he be able to maintain sannyas? And actually he is a, Chaitanya, which is not a very high, rank of initiation. I am, much higher. I can initiate him. And, Gopinath is completely insulted by this kind of thing. He says, you don't have any idea, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He doesn't need your initiation. The Bhattacharya says, but actually, in the Vedas it says the Supreme Lord only comes in 3 yugas. He's called Tri-yuga, So that's when Gopinath counters with the idea that you don't really know the Vedas. You think you do, but the Supreme Lord comes all 4 yugas. But he comes in the 4th yuga hidden, and he will have a golden form. So we find out, about, that the Lord, when Krishna is born, the explanation is that this child will come in colors, that in Satya Yuga he's whitish, in Treta Yuga he's reddish, in Kali Yuga, he will be blackish, which is not Kali, but Dwapara Yuga, he will be blackish. And in Kali Yuga, he will be Pita, or yellowish or golden, So this is when they do the name-giving ceremony that Nanda Baba does in seclusion. So in this way, he explains that Lord Caitanya is hidden. He is not easily understood by people who read the Vedas. He's not understood by people who know something about avatars. And outside of the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, he's not even really understood as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the Sri Vaishnavas just think of him as a some kind of great saint or something like that in general. But we understand him to be directly Krishna because of all this, And there's a whole thing where you can explain in a, if you're doing a presentation or an argument, that Lord Caitanya is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Vedas are clear about it, because in other places the Vedas mention that the Supreme Lord will come and his mother will be called Sati, that's Sachi rather. And then we also hear that the Supreme Lord will come and he will take the role of a sannyasi. So there's no other avatar that has the role of a sannyasi, only Lord Caitanya. So we can see that there are Vedic references that show that. But for the most part, like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, most people are unaware of Lord Chaitanya's divinity, and they're unaware of his purpose. And Lord Caitanya actually rejected the idea that he was God. He did that verbally, although he exhibited his universal form to various people at different times. So only God can do that. You can't exhibit a universal form unless you are the Supreme. And of course, when Lord Caitanya was a baby, he would walk around in the dirt in front of, Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata's house. And they noticed the auspicious markings on the feet that only actual avatars have, the rod for controlling elephants, the, thunderbolt and the chakra and all these kind of things. And they noticed it in the footprints. And they thought, is our shalagram actually taking form and walking around? They didn't realize that it was their son that had those markings on his feet. So all these things, show that although Lord Caitanya disregarded or disclaimed being the Supreme Lord, in fact he was.
Thank you, Maharaj, for that explanation. It was my mistake that I asked it. I was going for a different somehow I asked it. I was trying to understand the special appearance of Lord Caitanya in this particular Kali Yuga compared to other Kali Yugas where it's also said that he also manifests.
Lord Krishna and Lord Caitanya only appear one time in each day of Brahma. And that's the end of the 27th Divya Yuga of the 28th. It's 28th Divya Yuga of the 7th Manvantar, I think is the way it works. So all the other times, each day of Brahma has 14 manus. Each manu has roughly 71 Divya Yugas, or cycle of 4, yugas of Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. And only in one of those out of 1,000, because if you multiply 14 times 71, you get approximately 1,000. So Lord Caitanya and Lord Krishna do not come in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in those manvantars. They don't come in 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They don't come in those manvantars. And they only come once in the 7th manvantar. And in the 7th manvantar, they come on the 28th cycle of the Divya Yugas. And so Lord Krishna descends in Dwapara Yuga, at the end of Dwapara Yuga, and Lord Caitanya descends in that very same cycle in the Kali Yuga, and then no more. In all the other, 999 Divya Yugas that happen in a day of Brahma, in all those other 999, there's some other avatar in Kali Yuga and some other avatar in Dwapara Yuga, not Krishna and not Caitanya. So it's very amazing that we were incarnated in this particular Divya Yuga that's just adjacent practically to Lord Caitanya. Of course, for Lord Caitanya we're some 500 years later, and for Krishna we're some 3,000 years later, but or 5,000 years later. But it's pretty close compared to this huge range of time. Is that your question? Okay. Any other questions? I don't want to... At least we're not competing with prasadam today because everybody has that. Right. Everything is safe for this evening. Okay, so I thank you all very much for your kind attention, and all glories to Lord Caitanya, the most munificent incarnation. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha. Hari Bol.